Thank you for joining us, everyone. This evening, we're going to be talking about going to Vancouver on the International Experience Canada in 2023. Today's webinar is brought to you by Crosscare Irish Diaspora Support Project and the Irish Canadian Immigration Centre over in Toronto and in Vancouver, which are a nationwide organisation. This is also sponsored by the Government of Ireland's Emigrant Support Programme. So for this evening, we're going to be chatting a little bit about who we are and what we do, and then we'll get straight into things on preparing for arrival, employment and networking in Canada. We'll talk a little bit about health, well-being and minding your mental health when you're in Canada. And then we'll be sharing contact details. There'll also be the opportunity for a Q&A at the end of our session. So if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. Just a few housekeeping bits. If you wouldn't mind keeping your mic muted for the duration of the presentation, and if you prefer not to be visible as this is recorded, switch off your camera. Remember that slides will be available as well after the session, so don't worry about taking notes. You'll have everything after the fact. But just a little bit around who we are. As I mentioned, we're Crosscare Irish Diaspora Support Project. My own name is Sarah Owen. I'm the project leader. We're joined by Niall Foster and Lucia Guzikowski as well. We're based in Dublin and we provide specialised information to Irish people who are moving abroad, like yourselves, and also people returning home once they've been abroad for a period of time. Some of the things that we provide information on are emigration options, but also access to Irish statutory services on return, navigating the Irish immigration system, say if you were coming back with a Canadian partner on your return, and then linking with support organisations abroad, such as the Irish Canadian Immigration Centre. So I can assist the Irish diaspora from across the island of Ireland. They offer outreach and information. They do this nationally in Canada in 3 key areas. So immigration system navigation, employment guidance and resources, social services navigation, and the team joining us this evening are Kathy Murphy and Gillian Goulding. Kathy will be starting the presentation and then Gillian will be talking a little bit about settling in and health. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Kathy.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And we certainly look forward to welcoming you to Canada and in particular to Vancouver. So a few things with respect to preparing for arrival. If you're all coming through the International Experience Canada program, either on a working holiday visa or a young professionals visa, you will need to have received what we call a port of entry letter. That's also known as your letter of introduction. Please make sure when you're ready to travel to Canada that you carry that with you. You will receive very specific instructions from the IEC with respect to what you need to carry with you in addition to that port of entry letter. I'm just going to review a few of those things this evening. So first of all, you must have a valid passport, and we highly recommend that you ensure that your passport is valid for at least 2 years. This way, the border officer can issue you your full 2-year work permit. If you do arrive with a passport that has less than 2 years validity, you will be issued a work permit that matches your passport. And although you may be allowed to apply to extend, it's not a guarantee. So please do come with the full 2 years. If you find that you need to renew your passport now, then before coming, you will then have to get a new ETA. That's your electronic travel authorization that will have been issued with your working holiday letter of introduction. So if you need a new passport, you need a new ETA. And if you have any questions about that, you can email me directly. Now, the IEC also stipulates that you must arrive with 2 years travel insurance, and they're very specific about what this travel insurance must cover. It includes medical care, hospitalization, and repatriation. Do not book less than the 2 years insurance. So when you go to your international insurance provider, make sure that you have booked for 2 years. When you arrive at the border in Canada, you will be asked for your 2 years insurance and proof of that. If you come with less than the full 2 years, you will only be issued a work permit that matches your insurance. And in this case, you absolutely cannot extend. So if you know you're coming for the full 2 years, go ahead and make the investment. Gillian's going to talk a little bit more about the insurance part later and about the necessity of keeping this insurance for the entire duration of your stay. Something that you'll notice when you get your prepare for entry email from the IEC is a proof of funds stipulation. Now, the IEC says that you must prove that you have, in the bare minimum, 2,500 Canadian dollars to support your stay. Jillian and I recommend far more. We have a housing crisis in Canada right now, an affordable housing crisis. Rents are very expensive here, comparable to Dublin, in fact, both in Vancouver and in Toronto. And you are expected to pay a deposit and your last month's rent upon arrival. So by the time you've paid that, by the time you've bought some furniture, because apartments in Canada do not come furnished, and by the time you've done a little bit of a holiday upon arrival, you're going to be out of funds. So to protect yourselves, please, we do highly recommend that you come with well above $2,500 Canadian. Now, something that we mention to everyone before they come is, please, once you arrive in Vancouver, or if you're transiting through Toronto, before you go on to your connecting flight, please check that your work permit details are correct before either leaving the airport or making your connecting flight. So if you're flying directly to Vancouver, your work permit will be issued by a border officer at the Vancouver airport. If you're transiting through another Canadian city, most likely Toronto, because that is your first port of call in Canada, your work permit will actually be issued in Toronto before you board your flight for Vancouver. You need to make sure you carefully check your work permit before you leave Toronto, because if there's an error on the work permit, they will not be able to correct this at the Vancouver airport. So what you're looking for are a couple of things. First of all, are all your personal details correct? Have they got your name, date of birth, and gender correct? And then, really important, have they given you the full 2 years? Is your work permit expiry date what you expected? As long as you have the full 2 years insurance, and as long as your passport is valid for at least 2 years, then you should be issued a 2-year work permit. If for some reason you're not seeing the 2 years, you are within your rights to have a chat with the border officer and respectfully ask that they review your details. If they are saying that it's a clerical error and that they can't do anything about it, respectfully ask to speak to a supervisor. You are well within your rights to do so. And just, again, very respectfully, remind the border officer and the supervisor that this is an international agreement between Canada and Ireland, and that indeed you have paid for and been approved for a 2-year work permit. If at the end of the day you can't get that fixed, carry on and reach out to me upon arrival, and I will help you with other ways that you can get that fixed. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. There are not many errors that happen, but they do happen, and we just want you to be prepared upon arrival. Okay, next slide, please. So, employment and networking. We're delighted that you've joined us for this webinar. Please, in advance of setting off, join us for our weekly employment webinar. In the month of March, by way of exception, we're doing them bi-weekly, but in most cases, right up to your arrival in Canada, you can sign on for a webinar with us to learn about networking in Vancouver, how to Canadianize your resume, and how to prepare for the Canadian job market. A few highlights for you, and we'll speak just about Vancouver. It does take a lot longer to get a career role in Canada than it does in Ireland. Now, the exceptions would be working in hospitality and working in construction. In both of those sectors, and even retail, I would say, you can generally land a job in Vancouver quite quickly. But in all other sectors, landing your career role, what we would say your real dream job in Canada, it could take months. And that is not an overestimation. So it's really important that you mitigate your expectations and know that before you come so that you don't get easily discouraged. You can definitely pick up some hospitality or retail work or even construction work to tide you over. But if you're looking for something in a professional sector, or even if you're higher up in your in construction, if you're a project manager, for example, it may take a little longer to break in. So how can you do that in Canada? If you attend our employment webinar, we will talk you through all the nuts and bolts of getting a job in Canada. But I will point out to you that networking is going to be the most important thing you do. So it really is, I hate to say who you know, because you must have the skill set and you must have a strong resume and you must give a terrific interview. But to get that interview, it's often going to be the people that you network with in Vancouver. So what can you do in advance of coming, in addition to joining our Tuesday webinar? You can reach out on LinkedIn. So I hear that not many people in Ireland use LinkedIn, but here in Canada, it is our main networking tool. So get yourself on LinkedIn, get your profile going, start to interact with the tool. And what you can do is start to try to find people in Vancouver who are Irish and working in your specific sector. Let them know that you're coming. Tell them that you would love to take them for a coffee or even pop on a Zoom to chat about your specific sector in Vancouver. And you'll be surprised. The Irish who have come here before you will welcome you with open arms, and they will be more than happy to pop on a call or meet you in person for a coffee, and they will open some doors for you. But you need to be resourceful, and you really need to help yourselves. That's the way the Canadian job market goes. So what else? If you want to work in hospitality, be sure to apply for your Serving It Right certificate. You can actually start to do that before you come. You are required to have that to work in the hospitality sector in Vancouver or anywhere in British Columbia. In fact, across Canada, you do need a similar certificate. This is for anybody who might be serving alcohol or working in an environment where alcohol will be served. The construction industry, we have lots of contacts there. You'll see our partners actually listed on this webinar. Actually, no, on our Tuesday webinar. IRL is a big construction company in Vancouver. They're constantly hiring, and they're one of our sponsors, and they'd be delighted to hear from you. You might also consider joining the Ireland-Canada Chamber of Commerce in Vancouver, which is a terrific networking opportunity for new arrivals and for established Irish in Vancouver, and a wonderful way for you to break into various sectors there. Now, let's talk about a social insurance number. Everybody who comes to work in Canada, and indeed all Canadians, need to have a social insurance number. So when you arrive in Vancouver, you need to reach out to a Service Canada, and you can find this on our website. And there will also be a link in the slides that you receive after this evening's webinar. You will go to Service Canada in person. You'll present them with your work permit that will have been issued to you by the Canadian Border Officer, and you'll present them with your passport as proof of your ID. And you will then be issued a social insurance number that allows you to work in Canada, and you will need to present that to any potential Canadian employer once you're actually hired. A couple of podcasts to point out to you. Have a look at The Irish Advantage, which is a podcast that we did here a number of years ago, but that is still quite relevant. And that talks specifically about how to use LinkedIn as your key networking tool in Canada. And again, if you join our webinar on a Tuesday, the next one is tomorrow, in fact, you will get a number of slides and a number of direct links to other networking opportunities in Vancouver. Also, by way of conclusion for me, you might want to look at the Irish consulate in Vancouver. The consulate is there to help you with emergencies and passport issues, but they also do a networking coffee morning. I think it's once a month, Gillian can confirm. And they also provide a monthly business breakfast that all members of the community attend. And it is just about the best way to kickstart your networking in that city. So I look forward to your questions, and I will now turn it over to Gillian.
Hey everyone, thank you, Kathy. Yeah, I'll definitely go into more detail in that just towards the end. So welcome everyone, and hope you're all excited about planning to move to Vancouver. Whenever you do land in Vancouver, hopefully we'll meet you at one of our in-person events here. So yeah, so I am the National Social Care Advisor with ICANN. And basically what I do in my role is I provide information and support Irish people living in Ireland that are planning to move to Canada, and then Irish people that when they move to Canada, I provide support to help people look for information on any health, well-being or mental health resources that they may be looking for. We're all individuals, so what a service that I might be looking for might be a different service for someone else. So what I do is a lot of the time I will have phone calls or email contact with people, and they'll just explain what services they're looking for, and then I'll support them find the right service for them. So you'll see a few examples there of different services that people regularly get in contact for. Things like looking for a doctor here, how to find a counsellor. That's a really big one, especially when you move abroad. Counselling is something often that people are exploring. And when you Google it, it can look quite expensive and not affordable. However, there is a lot of low-cost counselling services available to people, so I can definitely signpost people to those. Addiction supports is a very common one that people get in touch for. General mental health resources, hospitals, sexual health clinics, helplines, community centres. They're an excellent way to meet people in your community, and a really nice thing to do for your well-being as well when you move to a new country, you know, to get some activities underway. And then how to sign up to provincial healthcare, which I'll chat about in a second. And again, just free and low cost services. All of these services, there's definitely free and low cost ones available. It's just how to find them. So the first link you'll see there when these are sent to you, the blue ICANN mental health resources, if you click on that page, when you get the slides sent to you, you'll see loads of different resources there that we have on our website that people commonly would contact me looking for information on. So you can definitely check those out and then get in touch with me about any questions you have. So provincial healthcare in British Columbia is called MSP. So this is Medical Services Plan. So for Irish people moving to Canada, sometimes we're not aware that actually we could be eligible for provincial healthcare. When you're on the IEC work permit, there is some criteria that you need to meet to be eligible for MSP. Like, for example, one of them is you need to be working over 18 hours a week. We do, however, have a guide. It's called A Newcomer's Guide to Applying for Healthcare in Canada. You'll see there on the link, ICANN Essential Guides. If you go to Upon Arrival, you will find that guide there, and that will tell you step by step how to apply for provincial healthcare, what the eligibility criteria is. And please, again, get in touch with me if you have any questions. Definitely apply for it once you are eligible, because then you will have healthcare available to you here. You still definitely need to keep your private health insurance that Kathy was speaking about earlier. The reason for this is MSP is amazing. It will cover your doctor's visits. It will cover if you need to, you know, go for a hospital visit or have any tests done. However, it won't cover for different things that you are a requirement for the IEC work permit. And that's why you have to keep your private health insurance, because it doesn't cover things like repatriation. And again, it's an agreement of your IEC work permit to keep this 2-year health insurance. So definitely, like Kathy was saying earlier, whenever you have your flights booked and you know the date that you're going to be entering Canada, have 2 years private health insurance activated then with the 3 main requirements that you'll see on this link here that they need for it. So yeah, if you could go to the next page, please, Sarah. So yeah, so this is just a few tips before you move over, things you can start doing before you get here, and then again when you come here. Social media is huge. Everyone's on, well, most people are on social media, and if you are, it's a lot of scrolling. So we would encourage people to just follow us on social media, because every Monday we do Monday morning mental health awareness tips. So you know what, you could just be scrolling through your feed and a resource may pop up that you mightn't even have thought that you might need. So it's just a good way to find out about different resources. We run different campaigns every few months. We run different campaigns. At the moment now for March, we're running a campaign in partnership with Guinness here, and it's all about responsible drinking. So just a few different resources about, like, you know, different things that you might have even thought of. So if you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you'll see those Monday morning mental health awareness tips. Also, though, throughout the week, not just on Mondays, there's really useful posts throughout the week about employment tips, about job searching, about looking for housing, family resources if people are moving here with families. So yeah, I would definitely encourage to follow us on the socials, and then you might see useful resources pop up. The few links here that you'll see, there's fentanyl, naloxone, get your drugs tested, cannabis. These are different links that I would really encourage people to just click on in your own time before you come here and just get some awareness about what all these different terms are. Fentanyl, for example, it's a very potent opioid pain reliever, but there is an opioid crisis here in Vancouver and throughout Canada. So it's really useful for you to click on that and just understand what this means. Fentanyl is really dangerous. It can be mixed in with a lot of like street drugs that people might use, like common drugs like cocaine, MDMA. And unfortunately, if it is mixed in with a drug that someone's choosing to use, people can overdose within seconds and it can kill you. So it's just really important to know like what fentanyl is, that you can get your drugs tested here in Canada. They're really pro-safe drug use. So they want, if people are using drugs, they have some facilities here as well where people can actually drop in a few grains of the substance they're planning to use and get it tested You don't need to show ID or anything. You can just get it tested and they'll let you know if there's traces of fentanyl in that substance. Naloxone kits, it's really useful to click on that link as well to know what naloxone kits are. They're available in the pharmacies here. You just go to the pharmacist and ask for a naloxone kit. And the pharmacist will tell you how to use the naloxone kit, and they'll also like go over it with you, and they're all free. So you can, the main pharmacies that you can get them here in is London Drugs or Shoppers Drug Market. But again, you can get in touch with me if you have any questions about that. Naloxone kits can just be really useful to have if someone is having a fentanyl overdose, because they can help while emergency services are coming. And then I've already spoken about get your drugs tested, but honestly, I would encourage you to look at that link. It's a really great service here in BC. And then cannabis is legal in BC and Canada, but it's always good to just know where it's legal to, be using cannabis. And also it's really good to know about, like, it is like any substance, it is addictive. So it's good to know that there is actually a lot of addiction supports for people, if they do find that they're becoming reliant or addicted to cannabis when they move here. And again, you can get in touch with me if you're looking for those supports for you or for a friend. And then important helplines. So yeah, I've just linked here again our mental health resources page, just because I feel like it's important to know that, like, it is okay to ask for help. There's loads of different helplines available to Irish people living abroad, helplines available to people, anyone living within Canada. And for anything that you're probably looking for help, there's probably a free helpline there for you. So a lot of the common ones will be on our website again. And if you can't find them there, just get in touch with me and I'll signpost you to one based on your needs. And then podcasts. So we have a Spotify I can do. So I'd encourage you to just go there. A lot of us love listening to our podcasts on the way to work or when we're doing housework or whatever. So if you follow us there on Spotify, there's loads of different podcasts that we've recorded throughout the years. There's ones on newcomers before they come, newcomers when they arrive, people who've lived here for 10 years and speak about their journey and, useful tips that they wish that they knew of when they first moved here. There's ones on networking, like Kathy was speaking about earlier. I actually just can't describe how important networking is here. I had no idea myself when I moved here, and it really is a huge one. So I definitely encourage listening to that. And loads of different mental health resources, ones that we've recorded with people throughout the years. So I definitely encourage to listen to those. And then just a reminder for people that all of ICANN services are free and confidential. So it's a free service available to you. You can contact Kathy or myself before you move to Canada or Vancouver. And again, when you land in Vancouver, you can contact us for any support you need. And if you decide to move to another area of Canada, you can contact us then too, because we provide support throughout Canada. And then the next one, so settling into Vancouver. So yeah, of course, before you leave, useful information to consider before leaving Ireland, we would strongly encourage you to reach out to Crosscare Migrant Project, and you'll see the link there, Leaving Ireland. Honestly, it's really good, to be prepared before you come, have your head in a good mindset, and know once you have all the to-dos and all the resources available to you, it can really just ease your mind before you leave. So I'd strongly encourage reaching out to them and getting all the tips you can get before you go. Newcomers event. Every Thursday in Vancouver, we run a newcomers event. So it's run out of the Irish consulate here, which is in downtown. It's right next to the train station, loads of public transport. And I run the events. So whenever you land in Vancouver, I would love you to come along. It's a nice way to meet other newcomers. There's always such a good energy in the room. It's just all people, like-minded people who've just moved to Vancouver. They're looking to meet other newcomers. We share some useful tips. I definitely go over the information that we're sharing here as well, because sometimes it's great to get the information now, but then when you actually land here, hearing it again, it might give you an opportunity to ask some questions about it. And it's just a general Q&A. Anything you're wondering about, I might have the answer, or another newcomer in the room might have the answer. So I would definitely encourage you to sign up to those events. And it's a good way to meet people and get to know where the Irish consulate is, which I'll be speaking about now too. So then, yeah, our essential guides and resources. So if you go to Upon Arrival, If you click on that link, honestly, I can't explain to you how many guides there is. And any question you have, it's probably answered on the website. So definitely use the search bar as well. And it will signpost you to the part of the website that's describing the information you're looking for. So yeah, again, prevention is key, and it's good to read all these before you come so you've got all the information. Really important just to mention to people when you're booking your flights, or if you've already booked them, most rentals in Vancouver do generally start on the 1st of the month. So they're occasionally the 15th, but like compared to when I rented in Ireland, it is very different to get your head around that, you know. So some landlords might decide to give you the rental a few days earlier, but it'll generally be the 1st. So if you've already booked your flights or you're planning to, just make sure that you have temporary accommodation booked before you come, like a hostel, an Airbnb, or, you know, booking.com, whatever you want to go with. Because yeah, like unfortunately, sometimes people land and they think they might get a rental within a week. So yeah, it's just better to be prepared. So if you're planning to move here, let's say for the 1st of April, you'd be like, you know, wanting to get here before then to look, or if you were planning to move in for 1st of April. And like Kathy was saying as well, just to note, a lot of apartments here in Vancouver, they are unfurnished. So definitely, you know, check out, like there's different ones like Facebook Marketplace where you can look for furniture. There's a lot of buy nothing groups as well where you can get furniture that neighbors are actually gifting and stuff. And again, I'll go into more of this when you actually get here in the newcomers event. But another link, that the last link on that page just is useful just to look over, is know your rights as a tenant. It can be just a little bit different here what your rights are as a tenant when you're living in Vancouver and Canada. So it's just useful to know what they are. So if you click on that, you'll actually find the numbers where you can ring, you know, the tenancy board here if you need to. You'll find out what your rights are. And it also, on that link as well, there's loads of the most common websites that you can actually search for accommodation on. Thank you, Sarah. Next link, please. So yeah, so then when you do get to Vancouver and you're settling in, these are a few useful tips for you. So just for transit, if you get yourself a compass card, it's kind of like the Leap card at home in Ireland. It's really useful to have this, and it will save you a lot of money. For example, you might have to get 3 different, you know, modes of transport depending on where you're going: a bus, a train, a sea bus. And if you're tapping on and off with your own card, you're just going to be charged for each trip. So it's good to get a compass card, so at least you'll just be charged for one trip. And you can register them, and then, you know, like have all your information there on the card. And if you lose it, you can always request a new one. BCID is probably the most important thing on this page. BCID is like the age card at home in Ireland. And we strongly encourage people to consider getting a BCID when they move here and use it as your ID instead of a passport. You will get asked for ID in Vancouver. Very common. If you're in your 20s, you will definitely get asked for ID when you go out to bars or restaurants. So yeah, it's just a lot handier to have a BCID on you, because if you lose your passport, of course, you can apply for a new one, but your work permit is linked to it as well. So it's just a lot of money, really, looking for a new one, and hassle. So we definitely encourage people to get a BCID. Irish in BC is a website here, so useful. I would definitely click on it, bookmark it. They have a newsletter that they send out every Tuesday. Really useful to sign up to this. You'll only get 1 email a week from them. And basically, while it's great that you can follow all different, like, you know, community groups here in Vancouver, Irish in BC will send out the newsletter once a week. They'll just kind of recap what's going on in Vancouver in the next week, what events are going on. They'll share some useful information. And sometimes they'll share information on maybe like a public holiday that's happening in Vancouver for you to have some awareness about that. So yeah, I'd strongly encourage you to sign up to their newsletter and their socials. Irish and New in Vancouver, I'm sure most of you are already on that Facebook page. You know, I think it's got 44,000 people on that Facebook page. So look, it's definitely a great place to look for some information. I would encourage you to use the search bar in that. Any question you're thinking of asking or you want to ask, it's probably already been asked, and there's probably loads of answers there on it. So use the search bar for any questions you have. And also any information like on any social media platform. I would also encourage you, any information that's shared there, definitely do your own research then. It's great to get the first answers and the first, light bulb moment about where to go with your question. But I would definitely encourage you to then do your own research and contact organizations like ourselves or, other organizations with the answers that people have given you, just to make sure that, it is the correct answer for you. And then Consulate General of Ireland, Vancouver Business Breakfast. So yeah, like Kathy said, again, would strongly encourage you to go to these business breakfasts. I started going to them myself when I moved here 3.5 years ago. And honestly, they're brilliant. It's a great way to meet Irish people within the community. It's a great way to start networking within the Irish community and practice your networking skills. There's an opportunity for people to introduce themselves at the start if they're a newcomer or if there's someone that is looking, for new opportunities in Vancouver. There's always a different guest speaker each month, so it's a good way to learn about different people in the community and different organizations. And yeah, so it's the first Thursday of every month. We just had one last week. So if you're planning to move in April, I would definitely encourage you to sign up and attend the business breakfast. And then the last one here is just ICANN Feel at Home when you move to Canada. There's loads and loads of Irish organizations here in Vancouver, in BC, and throughout Canada. So I'd encourage you to just click on this link here, and then you'll see about maybe the different GA clubs. You'll see about Irish dancing clubs, Vancouver Irish running crew, big running crew here. So there's probably a club to meet different people's needs. So if you click on that link there, you will find those ones. And thank you. I'll hand you back over to Sarah.
Thank you very much, Kathy and Gillian. Really insightful as always. So if you'd like to get in touch with either ourselves here in Dublin at Crosscare Irish Diaspora Support Project, you can give us a ring or drop us an email. You also have direct emails there for myself, Niall, and Lucia, and you can follow us on the socials. And then for Gillian and for Kathy, you have contact details there, including a toll-free number when you're in Canada. And also, as Gillian and Kathy have mentioned, the website there, which I'm actually just noticing, this link will take you to the website, but irishcdn.org is the website for ICANN. And do follow Kathy and Gillian on the Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. There is such a wealth of information there, even if it's just for when you're getting settled in. You might not need these supports once you're there a little while, but initially it's very important to plug yourself in and give yourself as good a chance as possible to make this a successful experience. So I would encourage you to do that. We're going to move on to some Q&A now, but just to say, we'd be grateful if you could take a quick survey to share your thoughts on this session and tell us what you liked, what you would like to have heard more of, or any feedback at all that you have. So thank you once again for attending, and we'll move on to